Mike, I want to thank you. Mr. Michael Harrington, I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much. My understanding is what happened was while you were alive, you did some things, and including write some books, including write a book that the President of the United States at the time used when it came to attempting to develop policy regarding how to address poverty issues in the United States, including poverty issues outside of urban environments, with an understanding that there were significant distinctions in terms of race and poverty and apportionment of race and poverty, and how that impacted different concepts of what would have been considered appropriate policy. And after you did these things and engaged in a variety of different political organizing efforts, you purchased property in Manhattan and you put together a trust. And I don't know the terms of the trust. I've never read the trust agreement, although I'd really like to. And then you took that trust and you bequeathed your estate to the organization, which was called the Democratic Socialist of America. Now, to this time, I have not heard that the United States, the Democratic Socialist of America, has ever been sanctioned, that it's ever been identified as a sanctionable entity. I know that there are a number of people that have been identified with it, including people that are very well respected in academia, including some people that have actually been in public office. And I am on the record as saying that I support pretty much everything you wrote, except for the essay you wrote trying to justify engaging in electoral political campaigns run by Democrats, right? But the point is, you took your personal estate, which included the intangible estate, included other things that you would have known about because you spent your life examining capitalism and the American specific model and how that factored into events around the world. And you bequeathed it to the people that would have been your political allies, if not actually people that would have looked to you as a sort of mentor or would have considered themselves to be acolytes. And so, what you did in your life and what you and your colleagues did was meant to be vested to the people who were a part of that movement. Now, I don't know exactly how this goes for a lot of other people. You know, you hear sometimes about people doing endowments here, or they'll support a project here, they'll give money, or they'll give some sort of commitment. They'll have a wing named after them, or they'll sponsor a charity university. Maybe they'll have a scholarship fund. But you did something different. You put your estate in a trust and you gave that to the organization. And during at least one term, I was on the National Political Committee of that organization. I was younger than pretty much everybody else on the board by at least 20 to 40 years, right? And because I wasn't in college, I didn't qualify to organize with the youth section, which was people under the age of 35 in that particular model. I was this unique kind of situation where I was 20, 21 years old, and I was with people, many of whom were of retirement age. And I didn't have a problem with that. I think that I was grateful for what that meant. But what I also understand is that during a very important time in American history, there were resources available to young people, including young people that might have been identified as dissidents and were targeted early in order to attempt to disenfranchise and dispossess them from having any of their own political capital, including political capital they might have created and even accumulated with other people. That was meant to be invested and that was meant to circulate in order to provide support and security and prosperity and an ethical framework for social and political development, not only for themselves but for other people. And because of what you did, I was given a foundation early in life that, to be honest with you, I don't think many other people my age had. I'm concerned. I'm concerned that the people who did go to college, which meant they had to deal with student loans or they had to deal with their family financing their loans, also had to deal with the fact that their education, including the political work they were doing as part of the youth section, was compromised by obligations the government set up on them and their education that first required them to demonstrate a utility or a loyalty to something other than their people, their country, or the integrity of their intent. See, on one hand, I guess you could say I was lucky because you were dead. I couldn't argue with you in person. Best I could do was argue with the people who knew you while you were alive. But what I got from your estate was an understanding that that argumentation was encouraged because we need to be able to be critical, and we need to be able to be critical thinkers, and we need to be able to be open to self criticism with an understanding that sometimes the self is larger than us as an individual, even if we're completely isolated and slandered during a specific time frame. And so now we're in a situation where, on one hand, because I didn't get a college degree or a college education, presumably I'm supposed to understand there is a great deal that I'm either not qualified for or have been dispossessed from. But on the other hand, it would seem that there was some early forewarning in what you had written and provided that understood that there were potential machinations that would attempt to compromise people of political principle is part of efforts others had to use their early efforts at collective organizing of political action and political development, as well as even potentially making their family, making their professional career against them. It's one of the unique things about American capitalism that you knew very well. The United States had a very specific kind of social development that was very unique. Our relationship to any sort of global workers' struggle or any sort of context regarding industrial capitalism was distinct from other countries. And this is why one of the reasons why I considered your work when I encountered it, even if I thought you were a little too liberal for my taste, to be authentic and to be authentically American. And in some ways, your estate might be the only thing I have left anymore that's authentically American. Because the way you did it, nobody else can appropriate it for their own national characterization. And nobody else can launder it through some other national characterization in order to try to extort me into agreeing to undermine my own people. And so I'm very grateful to you, Michael Harrington. You may not be with us anymore, but you assured that what you did in your life was here to provide us with protection. And you know, I'm still alive. I'm not dead. And I haven't agreed to bequeath anything to anybody. Insofar as I might have at one point in time, I understand how that can be disabused and misused. This is an unfortunate thing I've been having to deal with. I wish that you and your colleagues would have been around to actually counsel me or to provide me with some recommendations on how to deal with that. But one of the things this has taught me is that we're in a very unique situation right now globally. And a lot of people have been intentionally divested of their own personal estates. I call it political capital, with an understanding that the struggle is actually about making sure that surplus capital is not understood as surplus capital because we are the creators. We are the producers of this knowledge, and we are the producers of this wealth. And nobody else has the right to say, well, it's mine. And you can't have it because we obligated you to somebody else's debt service. And as a result, anything you've done or produced is allowed to be acquired by somebody else. You well knew alienation from the means of our own production was going to be the primary issue in the latter part of the 20th century, going into the new era where technology has the kind of relationship it does. Our thoughts, our ideas, and our dreams. We have a certain responsibility to try to be conscientious with them. But we also have a duty to fight for our right to be able to say that we actually created that and we created it for. We didn't create it so somebody else could beat us into saying, fine, just take it. And then they could go and use it and appropriate it as part of their, I don't know, continued contributions to the legacy of colonial exploitation. I don't know. They don't really talk about it like that these days, do they? I want to thank you, though. I still have it. It's not really going to go anywhere. I don't know how many people that were also beneficiaries took it as seriously as I do. I'm pretty certain it saved my life. And I'm pretty certain that I've yet to encounter anybody that had enough integrity to actually provide a material foundation, including through their own intangible property, to provide for the protection and welfare of young people that came after them. It's something we really, really need. So I want to acknowledge you did it before anybody else even pointed it out.